order for Monday, June 4th. We're going to change the agenda around a little bit. We're going to have the Public Works project updates first, followed by the presentation of the Civic Center Master Plan 292 group. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel like we're at a committee meeting with four of us here.
Well, we're trying to get more. I texted a couple of council members, and hopefully we get more here. So
Thank you. I did meet with Sean and Mr. Brizendine this past week, and you have the current circumstances in front of you. I'll just start with number one, the lighting project at Baker Diamond Field. It's in dire need of replacement. The lumens that's putting out is really, really low compared to what's needed for these ball fields. The project was in the 2018 CIP, but wasn't funded. Our staff's proposing reallocating the $200,000 from the Dorothy Olson Aquatic Facility servicing project and $170,000 from the amphitheater project to fund the lighting replacement. The aquatic project could be moved to 2019, and the amphitheater to a future date, and it should be funded by private funds as it started out to be. Quotes have been received with work proposed in the fall of the 2018 season. That's for the aquatic facility. If the project cannot get done in this time frame, it will be 2 full seasons being held in less than adequate lighting conditions for the ball fields. So we're recommending those 2 changes, delaying the aquatic facility resurfacing and taking the money from an amphitheater project to help do the lighting project this year. Okay, that's number one. I know we can't vote on it, but these items, I suspect, would go in 2 weeks before the council. Okay?
did you want to discuss them here, or did you just want to go through them?
No, certainly can discuss them. Yeah.
Does anybody have any
What does the council think? Go ahead, Julie.
I was just wondering, like, for an explanation, how the aquatic center pool that went from immediate need to delaying it for a year, what happened?
Well, the resurfacing it, once it's done, it should be done early spring, hopefully. This spring wasn't early. It needs to have water in it after it's finished, like for, Sean, help me out here, 10 days, 2 weeks, what was it? And if we do it in the fall, it's not going to work.
Okay.
Because it could freeze up immediately. So it's much better done next spring. And we could allocate the money in next year's budget for it. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I have a concern in regard to the funds, taking funds away from the amphitheater. I understand that there is a group of individuals who might be willing to pledge dollars, but if they would be matching dollars for the cities, and to remove those funds from the project, I think could be detrimental to that. I'd also note that this has not been a priority that was identified by the council, and I would really prefer that we address those priority items. So we have a group of individuals that are looking at doing local option sales tax. This would be a fantastic project to be included in that. We won't know if that's a possibility or not until November, but I think it would be worth waiting that period of time, knowing that half of those funds theoretically would be paid through taxes paid from folks outside the area that were coming here and using that ball field. So I would not be in favor of it.
The amphitheater originally started out to be built with private funds and no city funding. We have a showmobile that can be placed anywhere in the city, Robbins Island or Bryce Park or wherever, and it's currently being used. So we certainly could delay the funding of that amphitheater. As far as the aquatic center, I think I explained that, but the ball field, if I remember, that's been delayed like for 2 years, the lighting for it. We hit it on a couple years ago. We took the money out to put it, help me out here. Somebody remember?
Probably the concession stand? No?
Because we took that out too. We took the lighting out and the concession stand out and put it toward another project. Anyway, Audrey, you had a question also?
Probably Rice Park.
Rice Park.
I wonder if it was Rice.
Sure, it could have been Rice Park.
I think it was part of the local option sales tax proposal was one of the places that we had looked at it. But my question is, what was the bid in 2018? Because what I remember about this is that it was significantly more than this amount. I thought it was more in closer to $1 million.
For lighting,
Yes.
for Swanson Field,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it says that it was proposed in 2018, so what was the proposal in 2018?
Mr. Christensen.
And I apologize, can I repeat the question, please?
What
What was
was
the
the
question?
amount that was proposed in the 2018 CIP that we didn't fund? What was the cost estimate to do the lighting at Baker?
That CIP was put together by Director Brizendine, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but I know that the dollars that we came in with were very similar to what was proposed, the estimate we received.
She's saying that the original one several years ago was like $1 million, just under $1 million for all of the ball fields, replacing all of the lights.
Yeah, and this one was just Baker, I believe, that we're proposing in this report.
I was talking about Baker, because I think there
Right.
was a substantial, to do all of the fields, there was a lot more. Do we not have the access to what our proposed CIP was last year?
I'm sure you do on the Dropbox. My network connection's not working, so.
Can I ask one more?
Go ahead, sure.
There's no way that this would get done this year either, right?
That's not entirely correct. We would put this in this fall for those lights. That's the reason for the comment, is to put the lights in this fall in lieu of the projects that have been proposed for next spring.
So maybe we can bring this back again with some additional information with what the estimates were last year, in addition to some of the others. I'm not sure about just reallocating these funds. It felt like we just asked about the pool only a couple meetings ago, and we were told that it had to be done, so.
Right,
I'm
it does need to be
confused.
done, but it also, we've found out from the vendor, two vendors that we got the proposals from, that project is recommended to be done in the spring right before the water goes in. So we've already missed this season.
Councilman Christensen?
Yeah, my mistake I mentioned Swanson Field, it's for Baker Diamond. So, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, when Councilmember Nelson is correct, when I asked the question and I asked for the information to be brought back to us, which it wasn't. And we were told that it had to be done in the fall, not in the spring. And then when I asked it at the subsequent meeting, which was the last meeting, I was told that yes, that it was researched and it does have to be done in the fall. So 2 consecutive meetings, the last 2 meetings, we were told that it had to be done in the fall. Now we're being told it has to be done in the spring. So,
Right? You weren't told that by staff?
yes, we were.
Okay. $350,000 is what I found for Baker Field proposed in 19. So what I'm assuming is that was brought forward from 18.
And we've been told that we'd be able to save some of the poles out there, so.
Correct.
It might be like $100,000 less. It could be a little over 200 for the project instead of 350. It needs to be done. I mean, we've been halting or canceling this for the last 3-4 years and using that money elsewhere.
Yeah.
And this is, I guess you would call it staff's and public work committee recommendation to the council or to the committee. Go ahead, Julie.
Okay, so this is just for Baker Field, and we need to do the other fields as well?
Correct, but this particular proposal is for Baker Field.
Yeah, to get it done in 2018. So do we have, we were planning on 2019 for all the lights, right?
Yes. I
Okay.
believe that is.
So that would still stay for Swanson Field.
I believe that is, let me call that back up here.
Just trying to figure out future,
Actually, push that one, the proposal would be to push that to 20, and that's the rest of the 850,000 that Ms.
Right.
Nelson was talking about.
okay, which could possibly be put into the local option sales tax if that passed.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I want to talk about the amphitheater project. I worked diligently on that, many, many hours, myself and Representative Baker, along with Bob Mathiasen and the Willmar Area Community Foundation. And when I presented the budget last year, what I said was that if we would put in half of the money would come from other sources. And that's why there's only 170,000 in there. The other monies would be coming from private sources, and those private sources had already been identified. The city administrator and I have a meeting with, have requested a meeting with Willmar Area Community Foundation to move this project into another project that was going to be being brought to the council. So to say that this was going to be 100% funded by outside agencies, I'm not exactly sure where that's coming from. I was never involved in any of those discussions. When I put the budget together last year, I was very clear that half of the money was going to be city money, the other was going to come from private funding. So I don't know where this conversation is. I know that in talking, there was a conversation that happened about that, about the first of this year, and I had that conversation with Ms. Carlson, and she said that if she needed to call staff to make sure they understood what the agreement was, she'd be more than happy to do that, and I thought she had done that. So, you know, it's concerning to me to see that, you know, work that's been done over the last year and a half is potentially just being pushed to the side. So that's
Well,
concerning on my side.
But the amphitheater was brought to us originally, from probably 5 to 6 years ago. And it was a group of people that said that they would fund it privately with private funds, and we were all okay with it. That's what I recall. Maybe Mr. Fagley, if you recall that,
Yeah, they came to community development, and he said he was going to raise the funds all at once. And we said, if you get half of it, you can start on the project. Well, he never got half, so.
Yeah, that project, yeah, you're both correct. That did happen about 5 years ago. They had the naming rights, they had a whole package put together. That project has since been scrapped because they weren't able to raise the funds. So the funds were raised through another method. And so the funds are sitting there currently.
well, this is probably a discussion that could be taking place in our list of priorities again, because we're failing to prioritize what needs to be done. And Baker Diamond, the lighting out there in all the ball fields has been put off and put off and put off for well over 4 years. And the aquatic facility doesn't need to be done until next spring. And I just disagree. I guess that 170,000 coming from the city for the amphitheater, I don't think we should be funding it. We have streets. I get calls weekly from people on our streets, and it isn't on our priority list. I mean, we actually pulled some, and then we'll talk about that later. But Sean, you had some comments?
Yeah, another additional comment. I just found out that within the last week, we've lost another bank of lights at Baker. So transformer type box has gone out on that particular. So one full pole is completely out, in addition to what you're mentioning now.
And that ball field is used for tournaments.
And stingers.
Yeah. Well, it's up to the committee/council, I guess, to decide whether or not we want to push this suggestion forward or not. Go ahead, Audrey.
I know that the lighting at all the ball fields has been a priority, but it's difficult to just transition from one to the other without a true estimate. You said some of the poles can be used. I thought the poles were leaning. I thought that was part of our issues out there, that we needed to upgrade the entire thing. So is there some way to get an estimate for what really the work needs to be done and then come back with that? I'm not sure about just reallocating the funds.
The estimate, I think we have it in the in the information there. The leaning poles, by the way, are for the rest of Swanson, not Baker. The Baker poles, I don't believe, are leaning. It's the poles on the colored fields, if you will, that are leaning. That 350, I believe, covers. I thought we had estimates for that. Covers the lighting for Baker.
What you're asking to be reallocated is 370. There is no.
Yep.
you're saying the estimate is 350, but it's not in here.
The estimate's
correct?
350, that's on the CIP.
From last year,
Nope, that will also be proposed for this year, yes,
for 2019.
correct.
Well, we got several other items to discuss here and to maybe hurry this along. We wouldn't be doing it till later in the year, so.
Correct, after the season.
So can we discuss that maybe at the, the next council meeting?
Well,
Go ahead,
my
Julie.
question would be, if we delay, are we hurting ourselves to be able to get somebody to put it in? Is there any expediency to get it bid out?
You know, potentially, you are delaying that. I mean, it's a short baseball season, the
Right.
summer, which gives you a shorter construction season after that, those college players go back to school. We've talked to a couple different vendors that currently can get in this fall and do it.
Okay,
If we wait too long, that isn't a possibility.
right. I don't want to lose our window.
We have a work session next week, so we could put it on that also for a little more discussion, because we got our hands full. Go ahead, Kat.
Thank you. I'd like to make a recommendation that this is a new trial for us as a working session, trying to incorporate the committees into it. But I think that if we bring a project that's going to be requesting action, has dollars involved in it especially, I would like to see us do a full city council agenda report, a full CAR for those discussion items, just as we would have done for the past working sessions. And I think like the first 3 of these, maybe the first 4 of them, would have been good to have a full CAR report so we have all the details and handle it the same as we would have for the working sessions.
I mean, it's an idea, and it's just,
If I may, Mr. Christensen, what the proposal, that whole number 1 paragraph is trying to indicate is doing the projects when they're the most efficient possible, as well as saving the most time and using the same amount of money. So we've shifted those around based on vendors' recommendations, contractors' recommendations on when to put those projects in, and funds available. That's
Yeah.
why that was put that way.
yeah, we discussed that at our meeting. We're just trying to be more efficient here with the funds that are available, and I mean, we can shift them around. It's the council, it's up to the council if they want to do that. But should we bring this back next week's work session? I mean, we're having a special one.
I would again state that I would prefer that we find a different source of funds, certainly other than the 170 for the amphitheater project. I think we need to send the message that when we have conversations in earnest with organizations and individuals, that we stand by our word and we are consistent in the conversation that we're having with them. And I, again, would reiterate that I feel local option sales tax would be a great option for this particular project. So, yeah, I think it definitely needs to come back to another work session before going to the council.
Okay. And we got the information, so I don't know if we need a CAR report or.
You can put together a CAR that says much what paragraph number 1 says.
Okay, just hold on, Sean.
I will.
Item number 2, the Civic Center refrigeration projects being prepared for advertisement for bids. 3 ice surfaces is recommended by our staff to accommodate the curling club. The cost difference between the 2 and 3 surfaces is approximately $425,000, and that number is $300,000 less than the proposed cost of the system the curlers quoted. Do you want to expand on that, Sean?
I would just, I know you guys have heard me say this, and I know at least half of you disagree with my recommendations, but I am going to state it again. The recommendation I will continue to have is by no means meant to undermine or circumvent the curlers or anyone else that could use that facility. What I simply am trying to do is ease efficiency and cost savings for the systems necessary for the proposed facilities at the facility center, at the Civic Center. What I'm stating here is that per the numbers you've been given previously, it's been quoted about $750,000 for a ice system that the curlers have presented for a standalone system. What I'm stating here is for the additional 425, we can add that to the existing system that has already been approved in the vicinity of wherever is decided the curling building will go, and it will accommodate that ice. I know I've said that before, and you guys have determined to make a separate system. I would be remiss if I didn't mention one more time that for efficiency and maintenance purposes, it's a whole lot easier to maintain one system than it is two.
Well, the council was pretty adamant as far as which way to go. And if there's any more discussion about it after Sean's brought this up, anybody? Ideas? Go ahead, Audrey.
To my remembrance, these figures are not correct with what the ice plant was going to cost the curlers. Plus, the curlers are paying for the plant, not the city with that. So I would just like clarification of the figures that you used, that they are not what was in our information originally. Am I correct?
Correct. So you'll have to remind me what that was, because last I saw was $750,000 for their ice plant.
I can maybe
Go
answer.
ahead, Kathy.
Thank you. I did ask that question of Tom Amberg, and I was told that the quote is $346,500.
For a commercial grade system instead of industrial.
That is for the refrigeration system they would like to install.
Right, that the city gets to maintain.
Well, actually, I'm not certain if that's actually correct. It
That's what
would
the
be
agreement says.
in the agreement. Another question would be if there is one system and the curlers are expecting to pay for the electricity used for it, how would you separate those utilities out?
Sure. Those are all separable types of systems. It's all electronic now. It's all
Probably be
digital.
metered. They'd probably be separately metered.
You can separate meter if you want. There's all kinds of ways to separate that out, or you base it on a third of the usage. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do that. That's a whole lot more efficient than I feel like the path we're going down.
Can I keep
Sure.
on? Could you tell us where the curlers asked if this was something they desired?
The curlers do not desire this.
And the agreement that we have in the letter of
Sorry,
intent?
part of the curlers do not desire this.
The letter of intent indicates that it's built to suit. And it is the curlers who wish this facility.
Right,
And it's the curlers that we are building it to suit their needs.
right. They ask for a dedicated system, not necessarily standalone.
I think there are a number of them here tonight that could
Disagree with me, I understand.
speak to that, right? So if we added this, if we allowed the curlers to put their own refrigeration system in, that's the expectation, and they choose to not build for whatever reason, if their plans fall apart, the city has spent no additional dollars on it. However, if we install this for a third sheet of ice, and we invest in that, and for some reason the curling club isn't able to move forward with it, we have just lost that investment, and we will not realize an advantage from it. We voted as a group. There were 4 proposals put before us at the February 5th meeting, and the decision at that time by the council was that we were going to go with option B, which was the 2 sheets of ice. I think that we need to honor that decision that the council made on February 5th.
And I disagree that we'll lose we will not realize the benefit, because we will have that system available for whatever comes next.
And therein lies a problem, in all honesty. There are individuals that question what the intent is in regard to this desire for the third sheet of refrigeration for the third sheet of ice.
Building for the future, yes.
Go ahead, Audrey.
I believe we also had the conversation that if, long-term, there was a need for the third sheet of ice, that our system was going to be built that we could come back and add a third component into the ice plant. So I think we did do our homework before with what we planned to do, and I support the decision that we made before. And with that in the future, if there is funds to build a third sheet of ice or a need, then we come back and spend the money at that time.
So at that point, Ms. Nelson, and we do a whole new project, and the cost will be, just a gut feeling, be about 3 times what I'm telling you right now, to add that one sheet of ice.
We asked that question, and it's my understanding that the answer was when we approved the 2 sheets of ice, that there would be an ability to add the third sheet. That's what we were told then.
There's always.
If you're
an ability to.
disagreeing with that now, then that's changed also since
Nope.
the last.
I'm not
No?
disagreeing with that now. You
All
can
right.
always add a
Thank you.
second sheet, a
Thank you.
third sheet.
Okay, if there's not a consensus on changing what we voted on, I think we'll move on to the next item. Mr. Mayor?
I just want to thank the curlers for showing up. I know they got to get to the Stingers game and serve hot dogs and brats and maybe a beer or two, so enjoy the game.
And think about us. Okay, the next item on here was fuel tanks at the Public Works Garage. They've reached their end of their 25-year useful life. Staff wants to be proactive and replace them before they fail. Replacement tanks is included in the 2018 CIP, and that amount was $185,000. They received quotes in the $94,000 range, and we would like to continue along and replace those tanks. Any further, Sean?
No, just that those were approved in the 2018 CIP, as it's mentioned there, and just like the opportunity to move forward and replace those.
Could you take those savings from that and put it towards the lights?
Yeah, sure is possible. There's $90,000 there. That could be, is that what you're going to say, Julie?
It is.
You're thinking alike. Okay.
At first, I wanted to say, I'm in favor of going ahead and doing it, to be proactive before we have an issue with them leaking. It's in the budget to do it, and I like the cost saving. And we have other places where that could go.
Okay, anybody else? Audrey?
Just a clarification, so this can just come, I mean, you are just ready to bring this forward to us. It can come at the next meeting with a car report? Is that?
I can if you wish. We've already received 2 quotes, and we've actually told those 2, based on the last information we got from the council, that it may not happen this year. And so we can call those 2 quoters back and see if they'll still honor those numbers.
I'm confused. What did we do that we didn't think we were going to do this?
I was told to not go forward with the project.
Not by the council.
Ultimately by the council.
It was, okay. Guess I don't recall that.
But those
were the
quotes we can contact those 2 companies tomorrow and see if they'll still honor their numbers and see where we go. And then have a car form ready for you.
What does the committee council wish to do with this? Bring them back?
Definitely.
Bring it straight to the council. Prove it.
That's what.
Right, under a car report.
That's fine.
Basically. Okay. Okay, next item, item number 4 is the Terraplane Drainage Pond Project funding sources are yet to be determined. Funding options include splitting the total cost 50-50 between the city and Mr. Kuzman, or implementation of an improvement district. If we did an improvement district, that would include benefiting property owners accordingly. Could you explain that a little more and who the benefiting property owners would be, Sean?
Sure, and I don't have a complete list because until that's decided, that takes a little bit of time to gather those which properties drain to that basin that would impact the pond there in the Terraplane area. So that specific option would be, it could be as simple as an area or an impervious area that contributes and then based on a percentage of the cost and then charge accordingly. It's kind of a pseudo improvement district that would just include the member or the people that contribute to that drainage basin. That would take some time and some additional money to get to that point and delay the bidding, if you will, of that project. The project itself has the latest construction estimate is in the 212 range, 200,000 range to do that project. And so
Are those current numbers?
those are current numbers within a couple weeks.
Okay, I've asked Mr.
Construction numbers, I'm sorry.
Okay, I think we're all familiar with the flooding that's happened over there. And I've asked Mr. Kuzman to come and reiterate what has happened and dollar costs to his company. Dan, if you want to come forward and give us a brief.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dan Kuzman. One thing that, in knowing that I've been asked to cooperate in the costing on this, I just wanted,
Could you put the mic up there? There you go. Sure.
I just wanted to reemphasize the fact that in the flood of 2016, we spent over $500,000 out of our pocket in damages that were done. These damages were done not because we weren't attentive to the problem. We had contacted the city over the past 12 years, every year. I've talked to every city engineer, so on and so forth, and there has not been anything done about it. In addition to the 15-inch storm line that presently runs in the Highway 12 right-of-way, Kuzman Construction paid for 100% of that. That was installed to take care of our development property. Now, again, with us not only spending the $500,000 in damages because there was not city action, we have also, on a continuous basis, had some other flooding over the past 10 years. We've also, every time we know that there's any type of a rainstorm event, we go out and set up pumps. We ended up going to 8-inch pumps. We've ended up going to a number of 4s, so on and so forth, to limit the damage that is done. So what I'm asking at this point, and I guess first of all, in addition to that, it is not our water that is flooding us. What happens is the outlet that we have in our detention pond ends up reversing. It flows into the pond after we get a little over an inch of rain. It's from downstream properties that, of course, because we're at a perpendicular entry to the line, get drained first. But not only that, the water from those properties is being forced into our pond. So we have a 12-inch stream of water being forced into our detention pond as soon as we have some over an inch of rain. We would almost, in fact, we did it once, but we would be better not even having any storm sewer than what we've got now. We end up manning it continuously when it rains. I don't think it's not a fair situation. We have had the proper storm sewer installed a number of years ago, of which we paid 100% for. At this time, there are a lot of other properties that are benefiting. I've noticed that, in fact, this week alone, Nelson International totally filled the area that gave any detention on their part. The properties do not have and have not gone through the process that they should to control stormwater damages. The one thing that has happened, and as we've visited, myself with the city engineer, is this last fall we did take the hotel runoff, which there had been a storm drain added directly over the 15-inch drain, which they come first, the water flows west, which took all of the impervious area draining towards Highway 12, drained by them first. That has been changed to going back to the way it was, which is a culvert under the entry road. There's also been some change in diverting some water off the 23rd Street. We know that those two items will help. They will not solve the problem. It's, like I said, when we get over a 2-inch fairly fast rain, we're flooding. I would appreciate I would appreciate action on correcting this. I'd appreciate fairness in who pays for it. And that's all I'm asking. Thank you. Yes.
Hang on there a minute, Dan. So you're stating that a lot of the flooding that's coming back into your development there is from city properties that have tapped into yours?
Correct. It's properties that are not ours. It's properties that
But they're
have been
using it.
added to that 15-inch line that is running down Highway 12 since it was installed a number of years ago. And that being said, as soon as that happens, and because of the amount of drainage for a 15-inch line, which is by no means even close to being what there should be there, it's full fast, and we're shut off. And that isn't even a total problem. The problem is then it starts backflowing.
Right, I understand it. Now, you're familiar with the fix that Bolton and Mink, I think, had designed several years ago. And I think Sean said it's like $212,000 to do that particular project if we do it this year, and it should be done. I think we all agree it needs to be done to alleviate any flooding over there. He's proposed a 50-50 split on that. I mean, where do you stand on that?
Well, I absolutely do not agree with that. Needless to say, there's the other properties are causing the problem. We've had our situation under control from the start. It's when you tap in, all other properties have had no cost. They've contributed nothing to stormwater control in the area.
Okay, so you would prefer that the city take the whole project, basically?
And/or if other property owners, if they're able to be assessed, that would be the proper way.
To take care of the other 50%?
Correct.
In other words, you'd be out of it completely?
I will go on record saying, because I'm quite generous as I'm getting older, that I would be willing to contribute to this project a total of $20,000.
Okay, of the 212?
Pardon?
Of the 212 that it would cost?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
Committee, council, suggestions, ideas? Marv?
First off, you and I had a conversation about this a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
And a priority of the council is to address our stormwater issues. And I believe that we need to step up to the plate and fix this problem. It is not Mr. Kuzman's problem. It is a city problem in the northeast part of our community. This would go a long way as of showing our community that we're serious when it comes to stormwater, and if we have a way we can address it, Mr. Christensen has said there's a way to address it. Let's get it fixed, and let's just find the money to make it happen. That is what I think we need to do. And of course, it's a lot easier to do that. I remember in yesteryear when we just used to look at Steve and say, find the money. I'm not sure we can do that anymore. But I think that, anything that you can do as the chair of Public Works, Public Safety to make this happen, I think we need to do.
Well, I'm suggesting that it does happen, and that the city pay for it. I agree with Dan, and it's, we've been putting money aside in stormwater prevention every year. I don't know what's in there presently, but my feeling is it should come from that, and if not enough there, then we will ask Steve to find the money. Rest of the council, committee? Julie?
Is this fix that came up, is this something new that came out before the budget was done?
Well, Sean and I have had this conversation for 2 years, Sean?
Probably.
At least, I think I heard about it when I first started. The letter with the original cost estimate in it was dated in September 2013, with this fix in it.
Right.
So 5 years.
And we didn't do it.
Okay. And just so I can really understand, we're talking about this holding pond by their fourplexes or by their developments?
Correct.
Then that floods and it takes out the bottom
Walkouts.
occupants of those complexes. Okay. Does it have anything to do with where the drainage is coming in? It's just the amount that's going to come in, it's always going to fill it and back?
It's backfilling into it from other city properties.
Okay, when Nelson International.
Can I add to that?
Yep.
Before? So the short answer to both of those questions is yes. The original design of this pond was a dry pond that would have the volume necessary. So by pumping down the pond, it proves that point by creating volume when water goes into that pond. Okay, so that answers a portion of that question. The other portion is the 15 inch is absolutely undersized by maybe a third that's in Highway 12. Now, two things there. MnDOT, when they originally were going to build or expand the construction of that highway, the plans were to include upsizing that pipe. When MnDOT did their project, they didn't go that far. So that pipe didn't get addressed. And the city streets, there are streets that do tie to that same system. So there is some involvement on the part of the city. That's absolutely true.
Okay, so when you say that it's a dry pond, was the expectation then that it's Kuzma's pond and that they are supposed to be pumping it to keep it dry? So then there's space available when there is rain?
No, not at all.
Okay,
When it was originally designed, from what I can gather, and it's gone through a couple different owners now until Mr. Kuzman got a hold of it, but from what I can gather, it was originally designed as simply an empty pond, empty hole, if you will, to gather water when it rained. When Mr. Kuzman came in to beautify the area, made a pond with a fountain, it's great, it looks great, but the volume's not there. And so that's part of the problem.
when you say the volume's not there,
The volume available to fill from runoff is not there.
to make the
Because
sprinkler
water's,
thing work.
right, because water's already there.
Okay, then when Nelson International also flooded,
Right?
will the fix take part of that? Is that part of the same issue?
I think Nelson International is upstream. So yes, if Nelson International, if the pipe fills upstream and then ends up in front of Mr. Kuzman's property, there's no place for his water to go.
Right.
I think Dan wanted to make a remark on that.
Yes, I'd like to make a remark on the dry and wet pond, and I'm not an engineer, but I can say, and there was a photo taken when the pond was still as a wet or as a dry pond. Dry is not part of the vocabulary there. When you get to that certain depth, there's water in it all the time. The difference in the volume that is created is what, 6 inches, Sean? Maybe if you go to a dry pond.
No, dry was going to be more than that.
Well, certainly not a foot. But the photo that this was taken on 7/11/2008, before we started developing the property to the other side of it, that was full of water. That did not, because it's at a water table, it does not drain on that basis. The drain was not put in on that basis.
But we know the history now. I mean, it's pretty well stated. We need to take some action. Thank you again, Dan. We do need to do something here, folks. I mean, stormwater is a priority. We get calls on it every year as we do our streets, and it's time to do something. This is a fix that we can do that'll alleviate the problem over there. Now, 10th and Candio High, we can't do a whole lot more than what's over there, but if there's something comes up, we'll attempt it. But this is something we do need to do, and I guess I'd be asking to bring this to the council. Mr. Mayor, should it be in 2 weeks or the next meeting? Tonight's? Or wait till Mr.
Well, I guess the question is it going to rain more than 2 inches in the next 2 weeks? We don't know that answer. It's up to the council.
Go ahead, Audrey.
I've heard a lot of information. I think we need to fix this, but I don't know that I've heard figures and what the true answer is. I thought we had done something last year. I know we allowed additional density into that development. I don't remember how many years ago it was, but at that time we were told there wasn't a problem. So I'm supportive of fixing it, but needs to be the right fix, and it should be more than just, I mean, this is a private development, so if we're putting water into it, we're responsible. I feel like we need to do something, but I don't know that I've heard an answer yet.
How about we bring it up at next week's special session, and maybe Mr. Okins can tell us where the money would come from. Go ahead, Rick.
So if you correct this water issue there, what neighborhood is going to get hit next then? Where's that water going? Because I got constituents by the ditch behind Lakeland School that are concerned because the water was like 6 inches from the top of the ditch.
That's always a concern, and as I've mentioned many times, we can do whatever it takes to get rid of water in one spot, but you're exactly right. Where does it go and how soon does it get there? The biggest issue with stormwater and runoff is the time that it takes to get there. And so what this does is it changes an outlet elevation to help protect the homes in the area, and then it puts this water in upstream far enough that the intent and the design is to not affect those downstream, but eliminate some of the time to concentration.
So I remember when these plans came forward, Councilman Amon at the time said that pond area wasn't large enough. And everyone said, oh yeah, it'll handle it. Well, it's not.
Well, and Ms. Nelson's exactly right. We've added density since then.
Yeah, and a lot of concrete.
Yep.
Well, how about we, is that a good enough suggestion? See if we can't find the money, and then we'll talk about it next week? It needs to be done
So,
this week. I mean,
If
this year.
if I can clarify with how much of the money are we finding? I mean, did you want me to solicit the services of a consultant to do a kind of a pseudo improvement district type situation, or?
At this time, I don't think that's necessary. That's something we could do down the road. I mean, I think we need to get this fixed. And I noticed here at the 2018, we had $100,000 put into the stormwater CIP. And isn't there a balance from the last couple of years also?
Well, now, keep in mind, Mr. Christensen, a lot of times those are used for ditch cleaning, for catch basin repairs throughout the year. So some of these unplanned situations that come up. We had a slide in one of the ditches last year behind the golf course that we had to fix from some of those funds. And so I wouldn't recommend using all of that funds for one project.
Okay. I just saw it in front of me, so I thought I could bring up. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Audrey?
I don't know what needs to be done, but it would feel like we should find out that this is a solution and not just a temporary and we've moved it somewhere else.
This is a solution.
This is a solution.
Yes.
Okay, so do you need to hire someone to do what you just suggested before in order for it to be a solution?
What I would hire someone to do is finalize the design, because this is from a preliminary design standpoint. And if you suggested, or if the council determined that they wanted to do this pay-to-play type conversation, I would do that as well. I would hire that done as well.
I guess that's what I understood that it was only for the pay-for-play, the property improvement.
Right, and I could get someone to do that that is more knowledgeable on that than I am as far as the improvement district type situation and benefit per use. And but the design is virtually done. I mean, it's been done for 5 years.
Yeah, the pay-to-play thing for an improvement district, it can be done anytime. I mean, we were thinking about it, doing it over in southwest of Willmar, I think. So immediately, I think we need to get cranking on getting the job done.
Okay.
Everybody understand that? Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Nelson and I met with staff today to talk about this concept for the whole city. So that will be a discussion that'll come up during the budget process for 2019.
Okay. What they're talking about is an improvement district where it'll be a water improvement district, where if it's draining somewhere and it costs the city to have it drain there, the surrounding people, whoever's benefiting from it, would end up paying part of it. On each parcel, there'd be X amount of dollars that you'd see on your tax statement for it. So that's what we're talking about. We can discuss that later, as the mayor suggested here. Any other questions, comments on that? We'll see it next week. Okay. Next item was Rice Park project is wrapping up in preparation for the grand opening. Maybe you can share that with us, Sean.
Sure, and I think we put it in one of the council work session or agenda packets, a copy of the invitation for Wednesday, June 20th, and I believe it starts at 5:30. I can't remember the exact date that it starts. That is open house, and the splash pad will be up and running. And, here I got it. Starts at, I'm sorry, ribbon cutting at 5:20. It's open at 5 o'clock on June 20th. So there will be a splash pad, 3-season shelter, and the restrooms will be open. Treats, prizes for the kids. Talking is teaching campaign launch, and story time with book characters will all be available.
Okay, you want to brief us also on the SRF pre-construction meeting on Miller Park, tennis courts and that?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Item number
back to
6, the sixth item on there. SRF and their pre-construction meeting for Miller Park.
Correct. So construction is underway at Miller Park. I was drove by it today, and the old playground equipment, the old tennis courts, everything is gone. Equipment sitting there ready to start installing new. And so you'll see things going together very quickly.
And I think I'm going to let you
Quick
handle.
question.
Go ahead.
Was there still something on June 6th at Rice Park?
No, that was what got moved to the 20th.
Got it, okay.
Yep. Some elevation we had to fix over there. So concrete elevation.
Correct.
Yeah. Item number 7, recommending installing a playground unit at a park to be determined by the council. You want to brief us on that also?
Sure, we've got, per the budget for 2018, there's a round figures, $100,000 to purchase a piece of playground equipment that would also include, it could include auxiliary pieces such as slides and swings to be placed at various parks. But I think what we've done is try to narrow down to the council to decide or help us decide where these units to be purchased shall be placed. We've got a couple units from last fall, could be installed at Miller Park, Sunrise Park in the June, or actually could be installed as we speak. We've got them ready to go. We're hoping to align the new purchase the new equipment with the equipment purchased last fall, the same time frame.
Many comments, questions?
So when is it going to be installed at Sunrise Park? This week yet?
At dusk.
I think the council can tell me which park to put it in, and then we will get it on a schedule and install it as soon as possible.
No, this year's. This year's
The
is
one that's
going in
planned for
June.
Sunrise.
Yeah, we got Sunrise is scheduled for this year with Miller.
Okay, so Sunrise
Not
and
this
Miller.
week then.
No.
Probably not this week.
Because there's a baseball tournament this week, so there'd be a lot of kids going up there.
It'll be July at this point.
Okay. Tried.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you. I'm excited that this equipment is going in. One of the things I would like to recommend is rather than the council choosing a playground, I really appreciated the thoughtfulness in identifying Sunrise last time. I think Mr. Manzer came to us and gave us some information in regard to what playground he recommended based on use and lack of equipment and different considerations. And I think that our staff know better than we do. I hate to see it become a political issue. I want it in my park and you want it in your park. And I would prefer that it goes somewhere that it's really most needed. So I would look to the staff to be able to make that recommendation.
Okay.
You can bring it to the council and say, this is
can
what
do
we're going to do. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Mr. Mayor, that's pretty much it, what we discussed, and I'll be looking forward to some car reports on several of these items, and we'll be discussing them next week at the special session.
Thank you very much. Next is a presentation of the Civic Center Master Plan 292 Group. First off, let me apologize. I didn't think it was going to take that long. I thought it'd be about 15 minutes, but sometimes we get into some lively debate, which is good and healthy, so I hope you understand, and we look forward to your report.
Just a second.
That's perfectly fine, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Mark Wenzel. I'm a partner in the firm of 292 Design Group. With me is my associate, Megan Connor. She's been working hard, helping us put this work together. A little background. I think we've been out to the city. I think this is our 4th trip to Willmar to meet with citizens, users, stakeholders in the project, had quite a bit of input. We've received several suggestions via email from residents, and have put together tonight sort of our preliminary suggestions for issues for the council to consider. These are ideas and not final recommendations by any means, and to give you some information so you can start to understand what the scope of the work is, what the cost of this work is, and what ideas we heard from citizens and stakeholders. I have basically 3 options to show you, but I want you to think about these more in a way as sort of a la carte, individual pieces that make up an option, rather than each option being, take 1 or 2 or 3. We've looked at the whole site at the Civic Center, from the school, from the high school down to the intersection. We looked at issues of both the physical building and of the outdoor recreation opportunities there. Originally, our focus was on the Civic Center, but we heard so much from the community about field space for lots of outdoor sports that we included this in our study. I'm going to show you, I'm going to make sure what you can see clearly here. I'm going to show you a site plan, and then I'm going to break it into pieces for each of the 3 options. So the first option here shows a site plan that has the Civic Center, of course, in the center, a north field area, and a south field area. This option happens to show the north field area being principally for football and soccer, and the south field area for baseball and softball. So then I'll go into the detail of each one. So here is an idea for a long-term phase probably approach to the Civic Center, which I wonder if I can use a pointer here of some kind. Yes, so I don't know, I'm sure you're all familiar with this. Blue line, Cardinal, the parking lot's down here to this side. So in the first, whoops, I'll go back. Yes, okay. So the first idea here we're sharing with you has, I'm going to read off of my sheet here, I can see it better than the screen here, has 5 ideas, 5 parts to look at. The first one is, in yellow there, is the idea of adding on a recreation center and a multi-purpose field house. We heard from several constituencies about the idea that we needed a more broad-based recreation center for the community, which would include some things as teens and seniors, arts and crafts space, an indoor kids play area, improved locker rooms, and some multi-purpose rooms. And then also a field house or gymnasium that would hold a multitude of sports, basketball, volleyball, pickleball, perhaps indoor tennis, things like that. And then we have the I'll give you the cost breakdowns for that one. These costs, I should tell you, are project costs for each and every one of these numbers you see here today. Project costs for us include construction costs, a contingency, FF&E, which if you're not familiar with that term is furnishings, fixtures, and equipment, and design and engineering fees. So typically they make about 20% of the cost of a project, so they're intended to include all those things so you don't have surprises for additional costs later. So the recreation center, which is a little bit generic here because we haven't spent a lot of time exactly designing what that would be, is about $4.3 million. The field house, which is based around the idea of 2 full-size basketball courts and then all the other fields that fit in that, is about $3.8 million, okay? The blue line upgrades, so we look at the existing facility. The blue line has a series of issues that need to be corrected, and of course, if we're going to spend money on the building, we think there should be general upgrades throughout the building, little paint and TLC. We've simply put together a budget of $960,000 for upgrades to the blue line. Some of that is correcting the moisture condensation issues that drips onto the ice, some insulation issues that are problematic there, and a few other those items. The Cardinal Arena, item C there, we've got an allowance for $600,000 worth of improvements to that facility. That includes, again, some TLC throughout, but some of the principal costs are painting the ceiling. It's time that ceiling be painted now, all the bar joists and structural steel, some restroom improvements, locker room improvements, and things like that. So that's, again, an allowance for $600,000 worth of improvements. This option also shows the cost for a covered outdoor ice arena. This would be a refrigerated ice sheet, just like the Blue Line or Cardinal, but it would just be roofed, not enclosed. We've used an allowance figure again for $4.8 million. This is based on a design we're doing for another client, and that's what that priced out. Yours may be less or more depending upon a final design, but that's what we see is generally the cost for an outdoor covered ice arena. This has its ice plant completely independent because we are working on the other project, the ice, so we count this as being its own independent ice sheet. And then item E is independent freestanding curling center, which we've priced at $4.2 million. Again, this is project costs. This cost we put together, all these costs were put together with the assistance of RJM Construction. They've built numerous ice arenas, several of them with our firm. Ice arenas is one of our specialties. We built a lot of them. And so this is the price we think for I would call it a modest curling center. Again, we didn't engineer or design every piece of it, but it has locker rooms, a club room, certainly the curling arena itself, toilets, the mechanical system, and a freestanding ice system for that. I guess I have details of each executive. Then we did some work on the north fields. So these are some costs that we put together again with the assistance of Anderson Johnson Associates, which is one of the leading designers of outdoor sports fields in the state. They do lots and lots of them. Again, these are a little bit general because specifically what the city would want to build hasn't been determined in specific. So item A there is a recreational turf stadium. It has synthetic turf, bleachers, locker rooms, concession stands, and tickets, et cetera. And that's A there is $4.1 million. Now, these can vary a lot in cost, how many seats you put in, if you have some brick around the stadium, or if it's just aluminum bleachers, if you have a press box, et cetera. So this is, again, a sort of a general cost for a reasonable high school football or soccer stadium. B is a multi-purpose turf bubble with a track. I should state all of these are lit, so they're lit for night. So B is a bubble in the center of that with a track that would go around it. You can follow me, that sort of square around the field, if I can find that piece is the perimeter of the bubble, and then a track around it. That is $5.4 million for a facility that would be a bubble that would be seasonal. And then the last item there is a multi-purpose recreational field. That C, that's not artificial turf now, that's natural turf, but it's an engineered turf system, so the grass is high quality and maintainable, but it's not artificial turf. The next item are the baseball, softball fields to the south. We considered 3 of these to be general recreational sort of fields, with one of them at which we call a primary field, which would be a high school level or similar kind of high quality field. So the three recreational fields have fences around them. They have benches for the teams, not dugouts. They're not lit, and they have, of course, backstop. And they have good drainage and an engineered field again. So I know the fields you have on the site have problems with drainage. These are designed not to have that kind of problem. So three of those are $846,000, or somewhere about $280 a piece. Again, project costs. Then the primary field would be $510,000, and that would be a lit field, okay? And then we placed a concessions and restroom building in the center. Again, these can vary a lot by what you put in them, but we consider these to be a sort of typical sized wood-framed building with some restrooms and a concession stand inside, okay? So there's a little summary slide here with all the pieces. I'm not sure that the final numbers on this page are what's important here today, but more importantly are the individual items. Because, but the Civic Center, all of those parts I talked about would be $18 million. The North Field would be $9 million, almost 10, and the South Field would be $1.7 million. So, maybe I'll stop and see, is this making clear enough sense? I've got two more of these to go through. I want to make sure you're following along okay? Okay? All right. Option 2. So option 2, again, we're going to go through the same thing. Civic Center, and then the North Field and the South Fields. This one you'll see the North Field is a mixture of baseball, softball, and a soccer football field. The Civic Center is a little more modest approach with just 3 sheets of ice, which I'll talk about in a minute. Then South Field are 2 soccer fields. So in this one, what we looked at doing was taking the Civic Center and moving curling into the blue line, constructing a new hockey or full-fledged arena, multi-purpose arena, and then doing upgrades to the Cardinal. What happens in the blue line, in addition to the, I think, $960,000 we had budgeted for improvements that the blue line needs, we added somewhere around $450,000, or $500,000 to do other upgrades to that facility to make it appropriate for the curlers. That would be an expanded club room and some other features to make that facility, really a high quality curling facility. The item C there is, I'm going to flip my page here so I can read this a little better, are a new multi-purpose arena. We consider these to be multi-purpose. It would be a concrete floor that could be used for a variety of events and activities, year-round use. We don't think you should build these kinds of facilities just for ice. You need to use them for lots of different things. And that would be $9.6 million. That includes new team rooms, new locker rooms, some connections and work to get the building to function a little clearer, a little better, and a new entry point from the public on the east side. And then the Cardinal would get upgrades, as I talked before, becoming really the Warhawks facility, reworking their locker room. So that's the Warhawks, and the other facility is more oriented towards the high school. That's our thoughts about how to better purpose the existing facility. All those 3 items together is $11.6 million. Here's the North Field area. I got to flip my page here again. This includes 3 secondary softball fields, baseball fields, a premier baseball or softball field, and then a multi-purpose synthetic turf field. So again, the softball fields are $846,000. The premier field is $510,000. And a synthetic turf with lights, about $2 million. And a concessions building shared by all those right off the parking lot from the high school. The south gets 2 practice fields for soccer, football, et cetera. These are now improved natural grass fields, good drainage, appropriate structure for the grass so that it's well maintained, but not artificial turf. They're about $200,000 a piece, or $432,000. So there's the overall of the whole site. So the Civic Center itself, $11 million, the North Field's $3.8 million, and the South Field's $432,000. Okay? Am I shocking you with all these big numbers? So option 3, some of the similarities with option 1, again, just sort of looking at different variations of this. So we have a Civic Center, the Recreation Center and curling combined into the Civic Center building. The North Fields gets oriented really around football, soccer. The South Fields, baseball and softball. So the Civic Center itself, we take sort of a middle approach between the last 2 you just saw, where we repurpose the blue line for curling, do the improvements to the blue line to make it in a high-quality curling center for $1.4 million, upgrades to the Cardinal, then a new multi-purpose arena to the north of Cardinal, which fits into the sort of the knuckle between the 2 buildings at $9.6 million. This shows an option for the covered outdoor ice arena somewhere on the site. That's $4.8 million, and again, that would be include an independent ice system for that. And then item E you see there is the 2 parts I talked about in the first option. A recreation center, something that needs a little more definition as to what that actually would be, but the things we heard, again, were kids' play area, arts and crafts, seniors, teens, things like that. And then a field house, gymnasium with basketball, et cetera. And I should note that there's a second floor walking running track in all those options for that. Something we find to be most popular with seniors in particular for walking. The north field now, we show a football stadium to the north with lockers, concession stand, public restrooms, bleachers, et cetera. In our estimation, there's about 500 and 1,000 to the visitor side and 1,500 or so seats to the home team side of this stadium. Artificial turf, lighting, et cetera, for $4.1 million. And then 2 grass practice or youth fields for football or soccer, $432,000. And then we expanded the parking in this option because it works off of the existing parking lot for the high school. And then the south side, we get the baseball, softball complex again. We heard from both baseball and softball about needs. These are kind of based on softball field prices, but baseball is just a little bit more because it's slightly bigger. But you get, again, 3 secondary, softball fields, 1 primary softball field, and the concessions restroom building, which I think we saw in the first option. So that's those guys. So I think that's our last slide, yes. Now, can I answer questions for you?
A lot of money.
Yes.
Thank you. Were the curlers invited to these meetings?
I met with them twice while I was here,
And what was the message you heard from them?
that they were going to build their own facility.
And is that reflected in any of these drawings?
If you take out the first one we did where we showed our version of 4.3, you delete that, add theirs, you have their facility.
Thank you.
Yeah. We thought it was important that we present to the council, we thought our professional opinion was of a cost of a curling center. So you had it from us. So that's why we did that.
I just have a question about the baseball fields. This is the first I've seen that the baseball and softball was included out here. Then what happens to our Swanson Field complexes?
So I'm going to give one of these vague answers as that's up to the city, because our job here was to show you some ideas of what could work and what it would cost to do them. If you want to keep, for instance, I know one of the issues was the football stadium, if it should stay where it is or move. So that's a decision, certainly as your consultant to advise you, is not a decision we would make for you. We wanted to show you if it would fit here and what the cost would be if we did that. So if the council's, would prefer it stay where it is, certainly that would be something that, we would support, certainly.
I guess I'm just thinking of what the conversation was. I understood the football field, you said it was closer, it was with the high school, because that, I'm guessing is the same thought process that the baseball diamonds would be out there. I guess I feel like the baseball diamonds are more a summer league thing at Swanson Field and not as much paired to the high school as the football field.
Okay, okay.
Okay, but
What?
We're also, because there are.
Oh, the existing fields that are here, we're replacing those. I should probably point that out in, let's see.
okay.
There's 3 there now. Because we're putting football fields on top of them, we replace them. Okay?
Got it.
And we heard consistently that those fields have problems with drainage, are hard to maintain. They're often very wet. So we wanted to show you what the cost would be if they were improved to where they're more playable and drain better.
So the softball fields, are they fenced then, or are they open?
They're fenced.
They're fenced.
They're fenced.
Is it for fast pitch? Is it for slow pitch? Or what are the distances of the fences?
So at this point, that's something yet to be studied as to what you would want exactly there. What we've done is for pricing purposes, we've shown you what the approximate price would be for those. If it was fast pitch and that's what you wanted, we would develop it better for that. Again, once we got into the specifics of what the city exactly wanted. But we heard from sort of both sides. It could be, 2 softballs and a baseball. It's kind of, again, we're trying to show you what's potentially can work there and what those costs are.
But there's a difference between fast pitch and slow pitch. Fast pitch is like 230 feet for women, girls. Softball, it's 300 feet. Baseball, it's 305 to 340.
Right. So again, because we haven't done soil tests at any one of these sites to figure out exactly what the soil corrections would need to be, we didn't bid out what the cost for the upgrade we'd have to have. These are really sort of generic prices, what a field would cost. So.
But there's enough room?
These are laid out, these are laid out at slow pitch softball. So baseball is going to be bigger, but there is enough room for them, certainly, if they went to baseball. So that's what we use for sizing for the diagrams. But, you could add small amounts for the additional cost for baseball over softball, but they're reasonably close at this level of detail.
Thank you.
Staff, are we going to get a copy of the PowerPoints? Because we didn't get those in our packets. So will we be getting those at some point?
Yeah, I apologize. We only finished these late Friday, so to get this put together. So it's a bit on us to get this done, but yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
So do you have any programs for grants or anything to help pay for like half of it?
You're going to not like this answer either. Our job is to show you what things cost and what it takes to do them, not to raise the money. I know we heard lots of discussion from people as we came here about the sales tax issue, and that was often a point of conversation. So how the city would elect to go about it. I will tell you my experience in doing recreation facilities is grants don't cover a lot of the costs. They can help. You can get a scoreboard, you can maybe get a backstop or some things like that. But to really put a big dent in it, I haven't seen that happen with most recreation facilities. I'm working in another community, and just 2 weeks ago, I was at a council meeting, and they talked about going to the legislature and seeing about what they could get and help. A lot of communities do that. I know that, again, doesn't sway a lot of money, but it can be helpful. My usual experience with that is it has to be a regional kind of facility in some way. And I guess I leave that up to you folks to try to find a way to fund these,
Okay. Next, I'm going to do, again, move the agenda and go to public comment next. So, that way we can get that accomplished. So, Mr. Rand Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Rand Middleton, Willmar. Darren Strand of Willmar was here also, but he had to leave because of a 6 p.m. commitment at church. Also here is Les Canal, the post commander for 1639. Mr. Mayor, if I could, would I be allowed just to pass out a few photos, just so we know who we're talking about here in regard?
Thank you.
I'm representing former players and coaches who are interested in naming the North Baseball Field, commonly known as Swanson Field Orange, in honor of Ellsworth Elsie Clemenson, who passed away October 10th, 1910. Elsie coached youth sports in this community.
2010?
The year.
Did I say 1910?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2010.
Thank you. It was 10, 10, 10. Yes, 2010. Elsie coached from 1955 and was still on in the dugout in 2009 before his health concerns became too great. In other words, he was a youth coach in this community from Ike to Obama. We are proposing, and we have signed documents from the Willmar baseball boosters and post 1639 supporting naming the field in Elsie's honor. We're not asking the city for any money or anyone else. We'll come up with the funds to purchase. Our proposal is to purchase a 4 by 8 foot outfield sign that would have the name of the field. And the only thing we would request is for city staff to to put the sign up for us. We have testimonials or expressions of support from his former coaching associates and players. And we would like to move ahead with this summer. It's the wishes of the VFW to see if this could happen this summer. We would have a dedication at the field before, I suppose, a VFW game. It would have been nice to do this many years ago while Elsie was still alive, or last year when the VFW state tournament was hosted here in Willmar. That would have been the time, and that's when it came up. The issue came up during that tournament with former players and members of the VFW, but it was too late by then. So, questions? I'm not sure what our next step would be.
You can get the information to Judy Thompson, our city clerk, and then she'll work with the city administrator on the next steps, and we'll take it through the regular process. But you'll probably have to come back here at least one more time to do your pitch again, so.
Okay.
Thank you much, Rand.
Very well. Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Joe Riddler.
Rand? Thank you.
Joe Riddler, Willmar, Minnesota. I'd like to address the brush site, nothing against Gary or Sean on their report. I think the timing on it for our city was not the right timing, being that we're into the summer and the spring of taking care of our trees. I travel 5 states, and in the 5 states, I've had a number of people call me and say, man, the city really is giving it to you again with their movement to 18-inch tree, folks. That's a large pizza. Think how many 18-inch trees we have in the city of Willmar we can't get rid of at our brush site. I don't want to sound stupid here, but I talked to one of my friends in Mankato. 8-foot length, doesn't matter how big, could be as big around as a car. You can go up to Alexandria, Minnesota, doesn't matter how big. 8-foot length, not a problem. You can go to Fargo. Fargo really has a unique situation up there. They actually have machines, they process the dirt, they process the trees, they have free days, they'll help you load it. They'll do a lot of things for you. I think we're a little mature making the motion on this. And again, nothing personal here. It's for our community. I mean, we pay taxes. You look at, I'm going to throw some things out there on HRA. HRA here, what do they have? Around 1,000 places they're taking care of? They aren't paying for any street and sewer. I mean, think about that. You look at the other taxes. You look at electrical, water, waste, that all went up minimum of 5 on us. And now I got a couple of friends that had quotes on trees to get rid of. There's no kidding. The cost went from $600 to $1,400, folks. Another form of tax on them to get rid of the property. We want trees in our community. I want you to reconsider this tonight. 25 grand, I get 25 grand, I get it. I don't know how they get 25 grand and 100 trucks are at $125 a load. That's $12,500 to me, but I don't know how we got to 25. But please reconsider this, because I think, again, think of how many trees we got that are bigger than this, folks. You can't get rid of them. And the city is a service. It's a service to the taxpayer. I get it, there's costs. I do really get it. But please, reconsider this vote and put it on for a study till next year. Another question is, I shared with one of my councilmen, precision trees. Sean, how did we come out with Brian on that? Sean's not here. Gary, were you involved in the meeting?
What's your question?
Precision Trees. There's a company I know in the cities in Little Canada.
What do we find out on that, Mr. Holland?
I don't have that information, Mayor.
This is stuff we should have acted on. It's 2 weeks ago. It's a phone call.
Can I enter?
Yeah, come on up, Gary. Hell yeah.
I called Precision Tree the day after the meeting. I had set up an appointment for the gentleman to come out and meet me, and I have yet to hear back from him. I called again. I just got his voicemail. I left a message with him that he was going to come out. He never came back to me. That's where it's at.
Well, I'll call Brian. I know him. He'll be here. They're willing to help us. But where I'm going with this, guys, there are bigger machines out there. I got a coworker that's working on a unit to cool a unit. It's got an 800 cat engine on it. You can throw in a 30-inch tree and it eats it up in seconds. There's equipment out there, guys, that'll take bigger than 18-inch. And by the way, what they're not telling you is that if we separate our trees from our brush, the logs, guys, are worth the money. What does that go to? It goes to your decoration dyed mulch you put around your flowers. That's what they're looking for. The other thing is we got ash. I don't know what our tree program is for our city, but we know ash bore's coming. So I know we're proactive in it. Why are we selling the lumber? If we cut it, tell the people we'll cut it, we'll put it to the side. I'm thinking these people might want it. Ash is a good wood. It's pretty. It's not going to be around here. It's going to be like red elm. You find red elm, and boy, I tell you what, you pay a high price for it. It makes beautiful, beautiful furniture. But anyway, that's my deal on the brush side. I wasn't going to speak on, but Dan Kuzman, I was on the stormwater task force. The city needs to get on Burlington Northern. Burlington Northern has a lot of property that sheds a lot of water. It sheds two different watersheds, folks. Some goes to Hawk Creek, some goes down ditch 23A. Now, you need to talk to Mark Dahlberg, you need to talk to Bob. I'm sorry, I don't know Bob's last name at Grand Bueno. They did some constructive work maybe 8 years ago. Ever since then, those folks get flooded. Their trailers, their rental equipment. And that water, guess where it ends up? Down to Danny. So they're higher than what Dan is. So you got a lot. And I know when on our group, we tried to, and God bless some of the people and some have passed away. They said, good luck, head to St. Paul. So our city needs to look at that. We have no idea what's coming off of that whole train yard, folks. It's not good. So I'm just passing that on as you guys need to know that. Thanks for your time. Reconsider this vote tonight. Seriously, we need to reconsider it. It's not good for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Peterson.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council, tonight we have representatives of the Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership here to present a proposal for a apartment complex, and they are seeking city support for their submittal.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's very good to be here. Appreciate your time, and work with your staff has been excellent at the city. My name is James Arnson, and I'm an architect on staff with the Housing Partnership, and accompanied by Corey Merrill, our real estate development officer, and Aaron Backman of the local EDC is here. Invited him to come because he has really unique and educational information to share with everybody about Willmar, the local economy, the trajectory of the city. I think a context that we all would value knowing more about. And it's the housing and economy interplay is something we speak a lot about at the partnership, supporting local business through providing housing options. As most architects can do, I could speak a long time about design, but I think in the interest of time, I'd like us to just walk through the project summary together. We did meet with the Planning Commission 2 weeks ago, had a positive review of the project. I just want to make sure you're all aware of the details of this, and then we can go wherever you need to go. And with your consent, I would like Aaron to have a few minutes to share some of his important information. So, front page of the project summary under project description. It is a 48-unit project. It's actually 2 phases. Phase 1 is 48. The second phase would be 24, so 72 total. The financial structure is a tax credit project, 100%, and to be commissioned with income averaging, which is something I will elaborate on in just a minute. And the estimated total development cost investment into Willmar is over $9 million, 9.176. Construction information, as with all tax credit projects, the state raises the bar for the type of work that we do. It's a high quality construction and design. Green communities criteria it relates to energy efficiency, health and well-being of residents. There are amenities and features which are unique to tax credit projects to maintain the quality of the results. Universal design benefits everybody. That would be included in the project. Durability, high quality, long-lasting materials and finishes would be a part of this project as well. Not vinyl siding, not allowed, for example. It's going to be steel or more resilient than that. And site amenities, we are looking for a playground. That's actually required. We always do that. A picnic shelter covered near the playground is another feature we'd like to add. Green space, landscaping. It is very close to the Glacial Lakes Trail, so we're looking at how to provide secure bicycle storage to amenitize bicycle use by the residents. And the next item is the unit mix and structure of the development. So income averaging, one of the things that happened with the recent tax law enacted by Congress is they've provided the ability for tax credit projects to support 80% income residents, 80% area median income residents, which is historic because prior to this rule, it's always been 60% is the threshold. And one of the things we like to do, where and ever possible is to provide housing for workforce incomes. This rule called income averaging allows us to do that with a tax credit project. So you take the tax credit equity and you're able to reach an 80% income bracket. It's distributed, so you're providing affordability in the 50 to 60% income range, and then the low to moderate income range of 80% AMI. There's also a 4 units set aside to address the at-risk homeless population that exists throughout the state in every city. So this is the distribution of units that we're anticipating with this type of project, serving the housing needs that exist here, along with supportive housing services. At the bottom of this page, you'll see the sources and uses. Tax credit equity through the 9% program is a $7.7 million investment. That type of equity is what allows us to do a project like this to the level of quality that the state expects. And then TIF mortgage of $315,000. I need to correct, I think, a note that may have been in your council agenda about CDBG funds. That was being looked at seriously early on, but that support is not available, so the request has moved to a TIF request. So as part of a resolution of support that we'd like you to consider, we'd also like you to consider this request of $315,000, which is about 3% of the total development cost. And the last page that I will walk through with you is why this project is a priority. First paragraph. We've been doing a market study commissioned specifically for this project. We've identified to this point a 2.8% vacancy rate among rental properties here in the city and just beyond to a certain degree. And with this project, we're also proposing a larger quantity of 3-bedroom units than is typically provided in a project of this type. Typically, that is based on 1/3 of 3/4 of the units, 2 bedrooms and greater. That's about 25% of the total. Most typically, we're looking at about 37%. And this is specifically and intentionally for Willmar because we realize the need that exists here for families, children's space to live. And so we've raised the 3-bedroom quantity for that reason. We've also identified through this market study, which is nearly complete, otherwise we would have provided it to you, a rental absorption rate expected for this project of 3 to 4 months. So that is identifying to us an actual clear need for this type of housing amongst the other good projects that you already have going locally. As I mentioned, housing with services, long-term homeless households, those very at-risk people, 4 units dedicated to that. Those services for them and for anyone else in this project, all residents can receive services through the Southwest Minnesota Adult Mental Health Consortium. Got it. And lastly, it provides workforce housing up to that income limit of 80% of area median income. The rest of the pages in this project summary are really about the services that SMOC will provide and has committed to provide for this project, with staffing requirements anticipated of about 0.2% of full-time equivalent. So that's a lot of facts. And I'm an architect, so I love to talk about design. But before any of your questions need to come, would you like to hear a few important facts from Aaron? Because he has relevant information to this type of work.
Sure. Mr. Backman? Also, Bruce, what's the length of the TIF?
Excuse me?
The length of the TIF?
There is no TIF proposed for this project.
What they're asking.
Yeah, they're asking for a TIF, $315,000 on a TIF, he just said.
Okay, I hadn't seen that prior. The length is whatever the council sets with a max of 25 years. But you've never gone more than 15 on a housing TIF.
Correct. Mr. Backman, how are you?
Good evening, Aaron Backman.
Maybe my question was premature.
EDC Executive Director. Some of the information I want to present is related to the economics and housing markets and so forth. In 2016, 2017, the city of Willmar had a total permit value of construction of $103 million. If you compare that with 2014, 2015, that was a 22% increase. If you look at a snapshot of single-family homes, year-to-year comparison, in the region, closings on sales of homes has gone up 22%, and the median sale price has gone up 12%. If you look at monthly supply in the region, it's 5.1 months. A healthy market should have about 6 months, and if you look particularly at Willmar, we're down to 4 months. Affordability index is down by 16%. Days on market is down by 18%. In other words, there's good demand. If you look at days on the market, it's the lowest it's been since 2006. If you look at another area such as inventory of homes for sale, again, lowest it's been since 2006. If you want to look at information in terms of supply inventory, it's the lowest it's been since early 2000s. That's the single-family market. How about the rental market? Right now, basically, the vacancy rate in Willmar is about 2.8%. A healthy market should be in the 5 to 7% range. In other words, there's good demand for rental units. How are we doing on jobs? Well, if you want to compare 2012 to 2017, this information just came 2 weeks ago, so it includes the fourth quarter of 2017. But City of Willmar is up 10.7% in the number of jobs. How does that compare with the state of Minnesota? The state of Minnesota was 7.9%, so we're above average here. How about in terms of looking at commuting patterns? And I have some information for people.
Thank you.
If you want to look at this graph that's going around, I know it may be a little bit confusing, but basically what it's showing is the number of people that commute in, the number of people that commute out. And the bottom line is that on a daily basis, typical workday, we have about 12,000 people that commute in. And we have about 5,000 people that commute out. So a net, net positive of about 7,000 people. There's also about 5,500, 5,600 people that live here and work here. If you put those together, there are over 17,300 jobs in this community of just under 20,000. 17,300. If you look at the second page, this one right here, where are these people coming from? Obviously, a significant number are in Willmar, but Spicer, New London, Atwater, you can see the range there. I won't go through all that. Now, third page, this one right here. There you see a radar chart, and what direction are people coming from? The big three would be from the east, the Litchfield direction, to the northeast, New London, Spicer, and to the north. And you can see there's less that are coming in from the west, for example. Now, another one that's interesting is how far are they coming? How far are people commuting in? What's interesting to me is look at that chart down there where it talks about, and this is the most recent information for this piece of it, 2015, but 10% are coming from 25 to 50 miles, and almost a quarter of people that work in this city are driving over 50 miles to get here. That's a target for a housing developer. There are some people that would prefer to live closer. Now, how are we doing on unemployment? Unemployment rate as of April in Willmar was 2.8%, and for the county, 3.3%. How do we stack up against our neighboring counties? St. Cloud was at 3, Fergus at 3.3, Hutch 3.4, New Ulm 3. So we have a tight labor market. We have people commuting in. We have housing needs. And then some other counties there, Swift, for example, 4.5, Renville 4.5, and so forth. What does that translate into when you have a tight labor force? That translates into some wage increases. If you want to look at the central region of Minnesota, from Kennebec to St. Cloud to this direction, the wages went up 5.2%. That's the fastest increasing wages as a region in the state of Minnesota. And the number of hours worked went up. If you look at all people, some people working part-time, some people working full-time, they are at the highest median hours on record for central Minnesota right now. If you look at population increase for central Minnesota, including St. Cloud, et cetera, fastest growing region demographically in the state of Minnesota, faster than the Twin Cities. Interesting. So I will stop there, but I will let other people talk, but I just thought you should be aware of some of the things happening economically here.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. So I understand, so you'll be working with staff then on the TIF? Is that correct?
We certainly will be. I apologize for any confusion. We thought that that was communicated and aware that the CDBG had shifted to a TIF request as a portion of this project. So we would be, absolutely.
And so is the 315 a total TIF, or is that simply what you're asking for from the city?
From the city, 315,000. Rick, would you like to comment on this? Our CEO just arrived, so I should invite him up here to speak as well.
Mr. Goodman, good to see you again.
Nice to see you. Good evening. The tax increment financing would support a $315,000 mortgage.
For the total project?
For the total project, but the amount would be larger because it's over time.
Okay. You have to work with our staff on that.
We would, yes.
Anybody from the council that has questions, or Mr. Goodman, did you ever, anything you wanted to add?
No, not at this time.
Just a quick one along, and maybe this is for Aaron, but as far as the need for rental housing, was the other apartment complex going up factored in?
15th Street Flats?
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Osmus, yes. Basically what happens is when you're looking at all of the different multifamily units, you're going to be looking at what's available. They're currently doing a housing survey. They haven't completed that yet, but it's in process. 15th Street Flats, I talked to Aaron Anderson today, actually, and what's taking time is getting all the state approvals, but they are expecting closing on that in July, latest August, and she's told me the day after they close, they want to start moving dirt if they can. That's for the 47 units that they're looking at here, and that's a 4-story structure. It's got more bells and whistles than this particular one, but both of them are, I believe, are quality projects for what we're talking about. If you're looking at rental, we oftentimes, it's not just a matter of dollars and cents and figures. I mean, yes, I mentioned the 2.8% vacancy rate for rental units here, but we have people that come to town and it takes them 4, 6, 7 months to find a rental place. That's a long time, and people, if they can't find a place that's suitable, they will go.
Thank you. Councilor Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes. How much income-based housing do we need and want in Willmar? As I understand it, our median income is going down, not up. I haven't voted for any TIF districts for the last couple of years, and I won't vote for TIF for this particular project. What I see happening is you build it and they will come. A lot of them will come from existing rentals in town in the private sector. And we're kind of leaving them behind. I mean, how much government housing can we afford? I believe the private sector is trying to keep up with this. I know that all the lots in Oslo Heights were just sold, 30 of them, 10 to one contractor and 20 to another one who intends on putting some rentals up, as I understand it. Maybe Bruce can expand on that, but we're being squeezed here with lower median income workers, and I speak against this. How much do we need in town? I mean, would this be overseen by the HRA, or is it a standalone project?
It's a standalone project. It's supported financially by the state, but it is not public housing.
Okay. It's not public housing, but it's income-based.
It's income governed, yes, to support intentionally the needs of those people who are struggling to find the units that Aaron pointed to.
But evidently, they're struggling because the costs in Willmar are more than they are in Pennock or Kirkhoven or for rentals, and that's where a lot of people are coming from, because they can afford the rentals over there. I would speak, if not against this, let's take our time and think about this. I suspect that this is something that needs to be decided immediately, because that's usually the case. We can't wait a month to do it, or 2 months, is that correct?
Well, the only thing that's governing any decision right now is the state funding timeline, and their application is due mid-June. So.
Is when?
Is due mid-June. So we are into the month where the applications would be submitted.
You know, too many times we're presented with this. It's got to be done now, and it comes, and we usually fall for it. I think we wait till this housing study is completed, and as in previous housing studies, I think I've been through 4 of them on my tenure in the council, I can tell you what they're going to say. We're short. We've got to have more low-income housing. We've got to have more assisted housing with government dollars. It's our money that's involved in this. I would speak against it, or let's take our time and think about this, folks. It's just too much of a rush to get into more assisted living dollar-wise. I'm in the housing business, and then I failed to bring up the cost per unit on there. If I did the math right, it's $191,180 per unit. I can build a duplex, 1,200 square feet on each side of the single garage on a lot, landscaped and sprinklered, for $250,000. The costs are always higher when there's government money involved. And I noticed the contractors or developers fee on here was awful high also. Professional fees of $400 and some thousand. Developer's fee, $425,000. I know that everybody's in this to make some money and to provide housing for people, but I think these costs are exorbitant, and we should shy away from it, folks.
Councilmember Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a great project. I think it definitely is needed. I really appreciate the additional services that you have added into the project for assisting residents that might need that hand up. I think it looks like a very well laid out and thought out plan, so thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
I would speak in favor of the project. I know you've been working on this for a long time. I realize you have a deadline that's coming up here. But also, I'm very familiar with the last housing study that was done, and I know that you need to update it just because of the time frame. So we have not satisfied the needs from the last housing by any means. And so I would speak in favor of us moving forward with a letter of support.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the TIF district, you'll be going to the school district and county to ask also? Or is it just the city?
Rick, would you comment with that clarity?
It would cover, tax increment financing generally covers all 3 jurisdictions.
Okay, so you have to present to them too then?
Actually, it's automatic by the city.
Okay. And then the management group, that's going to be Lloyd? Management?
Yes.
And they already manage some in.
They manage the Cardinals for us, and we'll be managing the Hanson apartments later.
Yeah, and they do a good job. So they'll be on-site managers. So.
They manage about 1,600 of our units across the state.
Thank you.
I'll just say that I had breakfast this morning with one of our major employers in town, and he told me we have a housing crisis in Willmar. The faster you can get in the ground, the better. And he told me that I told him about this project when I seen it on the agenda on Friday. I gave him a call, talked to him about it, and he said that you know They have people coming from the metro, like Aaron's statistics prove. They have people that come from the metro to work here in Willmar, in the Willmar area. And so, you know, I guess what I would say is I fully support the project. I think the project is needed. The housing study, the last housing study we did, of course, showed a deficit at every level of housing. And people are in the business to do money, to make money. We are in the business, and none of us go to work to say we don't want to make any money today. And, you know, you can't do a project and not have a positive bottom line. And that doesn't make any difference if it's me when I worked in the fire service or other people when they worked in other areas. If you're not bringing money home, you don't go to work, or you don't work very long. So thank you for bringing this project to us. I wholeheartedly support this project. I know you've been at the table for a long time. You didn't just bring this project today to the council on Wednesday. This has been vetted through the community for a considerable amount of time. And I believe since probably February, March, I think the first meeting I was at about this. So we knew this was coming. It was just a matter of when. So thank you for bringing the project.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We will also be sharing our housing study with the city, the county, and the Vision 2040 group as soon as it's available this week.
Thank you.
So share with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're out of time.
Mr. Holland, I know that the Eagle Lake Sanitary Sewer District Agreement is something that is important, but we are at 7 o'clock. We need to take a 5-minute break. So we'll take a short recess, and then during that recess, you and I will talk about how we bring that forward. Okay. Thank you. We're adjourned. 10 after 7. 7:10.